Who's at the door? A child?
It is a man in a yellow vest. I think he's delivering some. Well, this is the thing. He's delivering connectors for a flipping swimming pool. So he's delivering 38 to 32 millimeter hose pipe connectors with little ring tightener things.
Sit down, Inspector. You're about to hear a fascinating tale.
Basically, the pump has a different size connector than the current one. So I need to
boring.
connect two pipes.
Sorry, my child is urinating in my garden.
You said it's boring. It's so harsh.
Joe, what are we doing this week, then?
So this week I interviewed Sarah Thomas.
Who's that?
So Sarah is the CEO of the Fostering Network. So Foster Network, biggest fostering charity in the UK, and she's brilliant. So she has a really interesting story about how she came into working in fostering and experience as a social worker, and also experience in her earlier life of kind of social workers and the whole fostering thing. So it was really interesting. I particularly liked where we talked quite a lot about some of the difficulties in getting people to consider fostering and some of the barriers that perhaps we can remove and misunderstandings. So it was actually really helpful to talk to about that. And she's just a lovely person. And also she loves Strictly Come Dancing, which I don't particularly.
I'm not a big fan.
She really likes it.
Oh, yeah, well, what do we hear more then?
Hello, Sarah Thomas. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Joey. Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's lovely to have you. Now, I'm very excited to have you on the podcast because of your role with the Foster Network, which we'll get to. But perhaps even more excited because of your starring performance last year on my favourite TV show.
Oh.
So you got to hang out. It was for more than a day, wasn't it? It was over a period of time with Kirsty and Phil.
Yes, I got to hang out with Kirsty and Phil, and I got lots of work done to my house, which I've been talking about for approximately 20 years. So, yes, and it was, there were lots of interesting parts to being filmed and having your house turned completely upside down and being filled with cameras and camera material. Yeah. Yeah. So, as anyone viewing our podcast on YouTube might recognise Sarah from her starring performance, perhaps. I don't know. That was great. I'm one of those. I'm one of those slightly stupid people who, up until I think I was about 28, so obviously a while ago now. I didn't realise they weren't really married. I really thought they were. I thought they were. No, they're both very good at their job, but they're not a couple. No.
No, just they gave that vibes, didn't they? But
yeah,
we probably should focus on fostering, I guess.
Yeah.
Rather than Kirsty and Phil. So if I was to meet, because I know you've got a lovely family. If I was to meet one of your kids, how might they describe you, and also your sort of your family setup?
Well, this is quite an interesting question because I knew you were going to ask me something like this. So I took the opportunity to ask my 14-year-old how she would describe me and our family. I was quite intrigued by it.
So dangerous?
Well, I could tell you what I think we are, but I'll tell you what my 14-year-old said instead. So she says she thinks I'm hardworking, which I think is her polite way of saying she never sees me.
Like a bit of a backhanded compliment.
Potentially, but she also says I'm knowledgeable and easy to talk to, which was quite nice. So happy to agree to those things. In relation to describing our family, she said chaotic, and then she continued to use words of a similar nature. She's like, it's organized chaos. Yeah, but we are very close. Yeah, so we're a close but chaotic family. There we go. And there's quite a lot of us. So I've got 4 children and a grandchild and another grandchild on the way. So it is a busy household. Yeah.
And you live in beautiful Wales, which I do too.
I do. I don't think I could ever live anywhere else, to be honest. Wales is the place to be, I think. Why would you go anywhere where it doesn't rain frequently and it isn't cold and wet, but also beautiful? Even in the rain, it's beautiful.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, so in terms of fostering then, so before we get onto the sort of foster network, so how did you first get involved in sort of fostering as a thing. So what was your sort of route to where you are now?
So there's a personal journey and a professional journey, really, that I...
The professional's a bit boring. We can look on LinkedIn for that, so... Well, personal's good.
Fair enough. Okay. So my personal journey starts off as a the day I was brought home from hospital. Really is the day where I didn't know at the time, but all of my older siblings were in care. So I had 3 older siblings that I knew of, and in later life, I've actually learned there is others. So yeah, but what I knew for many years of my young adult life, when I read the information about it, was basically that they were in fostering and residential care. I was kept at home and had, a really not well, I don't really know what the right words are to describe it, but it was a fairly challenging childhood, to say the least. And a lot of it was the sort of safety aspects to it was my grandmother, who, although not any formal kinship arrangement, because they didn't particularly exist at that point, she was the reason that I made it through childhood, really. And I spent a lot of time living at her house and living under her care. And she's influenced lots of things about me and who I am. So that's that side of things. I don't think the professional journey is too boring.
No, sorry, Sarah. No, you feel free to include back.
I think interestingly for me, so I was a student social worker. I'd always been really clear that I wanted to go into social care of some type.
Was that because of that experience as a child and young person?
Yeah,
wanted to be
yeah, definitely.
So did you have positive experiences with social workers?
No.
So it was kind of a not great experience, so therefore wanting to do it better kind of thing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It was a definite, real clear part of me that was like, this should be better. Children shouldn't be experiencing this. This should get better for everybody, really. It's just not right. So my experience of the social care system as it was that lots of different things needed to be done differently for it to be better. And I, right at the age of 16, was just really clear, this is what I want to do and this is who I want to be. But when I actually did my social work training, which I loved every minute of it, but my second year, it was my second year placement, and I remember them telling me that I was going to a fostering team, and I was furious.
Oh, so they just put you in, you don't get to pick?
You don't get to pick, no. Okay. You don't get to choose, or you didn't in those days. There was no choice over it. It was just, we think you'd really grow and learn, and this would be a good environment for you. So they suggested I go to a fostering setting, and I really wanted child protection, and I was like, I want safeguarding, I want to do proper social work. I remember being quite disparaging about, fostering in itself, and I didn't know then what I know now. And the placement literally turned everything that I knew on its head, and, without a doubt, led it absolutely. That 6 months that I spent in that fostering environment, there was incredible team manager, incredible leadership, incredible social workers, an amazing environment. The foster carers that I met taught me everything that I carry with me now. Like, I just found the whole experience absolutely brilliant, and I never wanted to leave fostering after that. So, yeah.
Wow. So what was the step from there then to the foster network?
Yeah, so after that, I carried on. I did lots of other, because obviously you do lots of different experiences and placements during the social work degree. It's quite a practical process. And then I did other jobs, and then I, when I qualified, went straight into a fostering service, and did about 17 years as a local authority social worker, working in different parts or in different roles, but during that time until the point where I got to be the team manager of the fostering team. So, and again, all because of really good leadership. Social work is all about relationships and leadership, I think. And you get those things right, and you can really build an environment that is good for everybody, you know?
And do you think sort of being care experienced yourself has kind of helped you in your career?
Yeah, I don't really talk about myself as care experience. Like I was the child that went home, actually. It was all of my siblings that were truly care experienced, because I don't feel like I was ever labelled as that, and I'm never labelled myself, but I know that people talk about it in lots of different ways, isn't it? How people see that, but I was certainly social care experience, so to speak. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's informed different ways that I see things. It's without a doubt the thing that that's what my passion is. That's what's inside me that makes me think I really, really want to keep doing better for other people who may or may not be in the positions that I've been in the past.
It's interesting you talk in your story. So your grandmother being quite a significant part of your life. So this summer we've regularly see children I'm a foster carer, and we keep in touch with most of them, and quite a few of them are in kinship placements now, with grandparents, with aunties and uncles. And it's probably one of the best things that we do in the year is seeing them and seeing that they're in these stable families, and they're still in their families, and the importance of that. So TFN then. I'm saying TFN is terrible, the fostering network. Yes. So what is the foster network and what does it do?
So the foster network, I always describe this as first and foremost a charity that is there for every foster carer and every young person who is involved in fostering, the whole fostering community, and also a membership organisation. So ultimately, if you are a foster carer, there are lots of ways in which you might want to communicate and network with others. And as the name says, we are the network. So that is what we try and do to support the fostering community, is provide those networks and link people up.
As a foster carer, I've always been a member and had the magazine and things, but I don't think I realised until I joined the foster network as an employee, just the amount of stuff that we're involved in, just in terms of, sort of government level lobbying, kind of policy work and consultations, things like Mockingbird, which is obviously not as big in Wales, but it's huge in England and in North Wales. And that's what I'm involved in, the wellbeing. And I was just amazed, really, just how many different things are happening across the UK at any one point connected to the work we do at Foster Network. So because you've been in post about a year as a CEO, or just over
a year, yes.
So what have been sort of the highlights of that? What are the sort of things that have been the best about it?
Oh, the highlights. I would say getting out and about to the countries, meeting with I've just met some of the most fantastic foster carers and children and young people, and it's been really brilliant to be able to actually meet members and feel a little bit more connected to the people that we talk about, that we serve. So, a big thing for me is about being able to really understand who our members are and what they need from us, so that we are truly serving the fostering community. And that's been the highlight for me, because I've got to do that quite a lot. There's some brilliant, like I met in London, of all places. I was meeting foster carers in London, and there was a lady who recognised my accent and started talking in Welsh to me. And we were in the centre of London having a chat in Welsh. My Welsh is rubbish, by the way, but nonetheless, she humoured me and told me all about how she'd been fostering in London for the last 20 years, but moved there from Wales when her children were little. Yeah. And it's just incredible. And then loads of, in Scotland, we did an event and I was invited to it. And the children's minister is there, and the children's minister brings her children. And it is like the most relaxed, wonderful environment with foster carers, their children, foster children, the minister's children, all playing in a really relaxed setting in this beautiful park in Scotland. That's a bit of a highlight. I really enjoyed that day. It was really lovely.
And do you have any sort of big dreams for fostering? What's your sort of hopes in terms, but not so much for Foster Network, particularly more generally for fostering in the UK.
Yeah, well, I've got huge hopes for fostering in the UK, and it all centres around improving it so that it delivers better outcomes for children, because, the majority of our children in the UK are in foster care. That's where they're living. If they can't live with their parents, they're primarily living in foster care. So when we think about the outcomes for those children, and we look at what that is currently, my really greatest hope is that the next future generations of children that are in foster care can have different outcomes, better outcomes, that they can excel and exceed and have everything that they need to be able to do that. I think there are lots of barriers that we need to support breaking down and removing for our care experience population.
It's because one of the issues that I'm aware of just through our work at the Foster Network and also as foster care myself is there is a shortage of foster care. So one of the reasons that my friend Andy and I we do this podcast is because we want to talk about fostering and adoption, and the experience of it has been really positive because we both have very positive experiences, even in all the challenges, because we want people to consider fostering for themselves. And from your sort of perspective and your knowledge then, why do you think it is that there's a shortage of foster carers? And is there any sort of, I don't know, no, there's no quick wins, is there? But what do you see as a way forward for sort of remedying that and such?
Yeah, I think there's lots of reasons that we have a shortage of foster carers, and it isn't new. There's always been a bit of a mismatch between the numbers of foster carers and the numbers of children that need them. But that does seem to be getting bigger and bigger. So we definitely need to start thinking more about it. There's some things. So we know that the main reason people become foster carers is because of word of mouth. So it all comes down to retention. It all comes down to how happy are foster carers and how much do they talk about fostering and how much do they talk about it in a way that will make other people think that A, it's something they could do, because so many people rule themselves out without actually finding out whether they could or not, and B, to hear about it as being something that is really rewarding and that is something that they feel valued and respected, and it needs to be appealing. It needs to be something that people want to do.
Yeah, I mean, my experience has always been I've always felt pretty valued. My wife would say the same, I think, and respect her as foster carers. But then I can see, just through friends and things in the community as well, that there is challenges where people maybe aren't included in conversations. And it's that kind of thing, it's raising the status of foster carers it will go a long way. So if someone is listening to this, Sarah, and they're thinking, I could be a foster carer maybe, what sort of advice would you give them?
I would always say, if you genuinely got that seed that you're thinking you might be able to do it, you need to speak to somebody. So I think that the power of conversations and relationships is what's key to taking people and encouraging them to go to that next step. So ideally talking to a foster carer, so somebody who is actually doing the role and can give them lots of insight into the realities of it. There's contacting foster lines. So, the Foster Network delivers the foster lines right across the UK, and they're independent advisors who can answer the questions that a lot of people might not want to ask a social worker or somebody else. I think there is a judgment piece around this, isn't it? People are worried that if they've got a conviction or if they've done something in the past or if they don't have children of their own, or there's all those things that we know that people just automatically rule themselves out. So speaking to somebody and clarifying that that's not the case is the best way to help move things forward for people, I think. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that where people rule themselves out for things that I know for a fact aren't really an issue. So one of my other things I do is I sit on, as you know, fostering panels. Yeah. And we see a lot of new foster carers coming in who initially thought, I'm not sure I can, have a conversation. And then they've got quite colourful stories in their lives to do relationships and all sorts of things that have gone on. But actually, they've shown how they've used that to become a stronger person, and actually becomes a strength because they've lived through that. they can reflect on that as in order to support children who've been through other similar things around loss and relationship breakdowns and things. So I always tell people that, because I think so often people think you need to be, in a heterosexual, stable marriage, that you've no relationship breakdowns in the past, you've never done anything wrong, and you've got to have 5 bedrooms on a paid off mortgage or something like that. It's just not the case. And I think we need, a variety of carers from all walks of life, from different backgrounds, to provide care for children who are from all walks of life and different backgrounds. So
absolutely, yeah. And to be honest, I would say that the more life experience and adversity and challenges you face, the more likely you are to be able to relate to the children and young people that will be coming into foster care. So never rule yourself out on that basis, because that's exactly what we need, is an understanding of what these young people might have lived through or seen or heard, or what their norm was for them before becoming looked after.
Yeah, so your main tip is to talk to someone, particularly a foster carer, get in touch with the foster network.
Yes.
Start the conversation. No, I agree. I think we started fostering for various different reasons, which we've addressed on the podcast before. But people we've known who've become foster carers, we've spoken to a lot about it. And there's people now, close friends, who we know are going to consider it, but are kind of waiting for the right time. Because sometimes it's about timing, isn't it? It might be you need to wait a few years. It might be that it's not now. But you can also support fostering in other ways as well. So, supporting the fostering network, for example, is another way of supporting foster carers, isn't it? So,
but also, I think fostering services can be more open to that diverse pool of applicants as well. And so we know that some services will say yes to, for example, somebody who says, I work full time, but I could support on weekends, or I could do something in that fostering space, whereas others may not. There's that the challenge that I'll always remember and always wish there was a solution to it, is the person who phones up and doesn't have a spare bedroom. And that is what fostering services deal with all the time. And I always remember my supervising social workers coming to me and say, this person is amazing, they're absolutely amazing, they'd be brilliant, I can see them doing this role, they're really, really passionate about it, they've got this, that and the other in their skill set, they just haven't got a spare room. And that is the one that is a tricky one to overcome, isn't it? Because what I would say to those individuals is, if you don't have a room to foster, then think about other ways in which you can either support other foster carers or support children and young people who are in foster care or who are care experienced. There's independent visitor schemes. If you speak to your local authority, they'll have lots of information about how you can go about it, discussing with any volunteer services that they run and advocacy services. There's other things you can do if you've got the interest and the passion to support care experienced children and young people.
Definitely. No, it's really rewarding, incredibly rewarding, challenging, but incredibly rewarding. So thanks, Sarah. So going to move on to sort of the final question now, because obviously I prepared the questions and you've seen them before, so you've had a bit of a while to think. So imagine it's 100 years' time, and people are talking about Sarah Thomas. What would you like them to remember?
Well, I have no desire to be remembered personally. That's not something.
Oh, I do. I
do. And I know you sent me these questions, but Joey, as you also know, is the nature of my day. I opened them at 4:25, and at 4:26, I shouted down to my daughter, "Help! Quick! How would you describe me?" And then at 4:29, I logged onto this call.
Okay.
So that's the nature of my life. So I haven't given this huge thought. What I would really like is, in 100 years' time, the outcomes for children and young people in foster care to have transformed to a point where, and I heard Lem Sisse say this recently in an interview where he said, people should be begging us to take their children into the care system because it's the best place for them to be raised. It couldn't be better. It's the outstanding level of parenting, and it's what every parent in the UK wants. And that might be a bit extreme. I'm not saying I will go on that level, but I do think that every single young person who's care experienced should feel that somebody is fighting their corner, has got their back, and that they come out of the system that raised them feeling like they're still there and they've always got their back, and that they are the best possible versions of themselves because they've had every opportunity given to them that they could have possibly needed. So that's what I would like to, and if it's connected to me in some way, lovely, but I'm not really bothered about that, really. I'll do what I can while I'm here to help that happen, and that's it, really.
It's interesting you say about the one person as well believing in you, so because there's all those studies and that a lot of evidence based actually for any young person who experiences trauma, adversity, having that one person, that one regulating adult who believes in you, whether it's a teacher, foster care, whatever, or parent, is often the factor and the difference between better life outcomes. That you go through all that, but you've got someone who believes in you. And I think it was I can't remember that is a TED talk I watched once with a lady from America. She's a teacher called Rita something. I can't remember her surname, but she talks about just the power of being that one person for the children in her class and the difference that made when they were with her, but also afterwards as well. So
that is the power of foster care. That's what every single foster carer can be, is in lots of cases, should be, and wants to be for the children that they're raising. So, that's why fostering is so key to this change, this transformation in outcomes, because it's where it can happen.
Exactly. And it's been for me, just thinking about the positive things about fostering, for me, it's those stories of children we've seen come through some really difficult things, and the ones that we still have contact with and see, and just seeing how well they're doing is really rewarding. So, my Alexa's going off. So can you hear that?
Is it checking me out? Is it?
It's
this
my wife saying dinner time. So in our family, we have those Alexa things all over the place. In my office in the garden, I've got one, and then we use it as a tannoy because we've got rooms in the loft as well. So whenever it's dinner time or we need our boys, we do like an Alexa announcement. And we summon them. No, I'm not being summoned. So I'm going a bit late. So we always like to end our podcast. We thought I'd end this interview on a very different kind of question, which is, what one thing, is there something, or what makes you smile or brings you joy?
The thing that makes me smile and brings me joy, there's two things, I think. I'll go with the...
Allowed to.
It's not allowed. So one of them is autumn. I just have a real sense of love for the trees and everything about autumn. I just love it. And I love the season and everything about it. So, and I do my best to get outside as much as possible. My favourite time of year, and that brings me lots of joy.
I once heard someone say that autumn should be like cornflakes. So dry, cold, and crunchy.
Yes, those are the best autumns.
Yeah, because you want like cold milk, you want it crunchy, you don't want it all soggy.
Oh, yeah, I agree. So I love autumn, but I'm also quite a secret fan of Strictly Come Dancing.
I knew this.
I really, really enjoy watching it. And I think there's something inside me that would have actually liked to have been a dancer, or maybe even, some sort of performer, because I just watch them and I just have a massive smile on my face. I think they're incredible, and it's such an amazing talent, and it brings me lots of joy. So I'm very excited about two things that happen this month. One, we move into autumn, and secondly, Strictly Comes Dancing comes back on TV. Yeah.
Well, maybe in 100 years' time, Sarah, that'll be what you'll be known for winning Strictly Come Dancing.
You know what? I did actually say to Kirsty and Phil, the only reason I agreed to do this is that I hoped it might get me closer to Strictly. And Kirsty looked at me and said, I don't think it'll do that. I know. But she's right, renovating your house is not actually a step towards dancing. I think I need to go down a different avenue, really.
I'd vote for you, and I think we could get all of Wales and the fostering community voting for you, and could get quite far. Yeah.
Just need to get on it now.
Oh, just need to get on it. Well, Sarah, thank you very much for your time. It's been lovely to chat. Let's find out a bit more about you, about the Foster Network, and
some of the challenges, but also some of the opportunities that fostering gives. So it's nice that you talk about it so passionately as well. And whilst you say you're not a care experience, I understand that you've got that experience of being around the system. I often talk about that because my parents fostered, and so I've always kind of, since the age of 10 or 11, I've always been in that world, but I don't consider myself, I'm sort of adjacent to it. But it changes you, doesn't it? Because in your adult life, you see the challenges and you think, well, we want to make things better, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Everything that happens to us is in some way forming a little part of the jigsaw about who we are and how we treat others and how we work and how we think. So yeah, people's lives are fascinating.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you, Joe. It's been lovely talking to you.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, like and follow the podcast. If you want to get in touch, you can email hello@otherpeopleskids.co.uk.